Sophia Loren was born as Sophia Villani Ciccalone on September 20, 1934 in Rome, Italy. She grew up in a very poor town called Pozzuoli near Naples. Her childhood was really hard and there wasn't much food or money. She lived through World War II as a little girl, which meant hiding during bombings and often going hungry. But even with all these tough times, young Sophia was beautiful and had a strong spirit that wouldn't give up. She was a kid who dreamed of something bigger than what she saw around her. She would look at the far-off sky and hope that one day she could leave behind the hard times after the war in Italy. The strength she learned from those early struggles would later help her become a huge movie star. Her journey to becoming famous started in a small way. When she was 15 years old, she entered a beauty contest in her town. A movie producer named Carlo Ponti noticed her there, and he would end up changing her whole life. He didn't just see that she was pretty, he also saw that she was smart, warm, and had a special charm that drew people in. With Ponti's help, Sophia started getting small parts in movies. Slowly, she went from being a shy, skinny girl to becoming a confident and amazing actress on screen. Their work relationship soon turned into deep love, and even though they faced many problems, including legal troubles and people judging them, they eventually got married and stayed together for more than 50 years until Ponti died in 2007. Sophia Loren became internationally famous really fast. Her big break came in the 1950s when she starred in Italian movies like Ida in 1953 and The Gold of Naples in 1954. Her natural talent and emotional performances amazed everyone who watched. She could show deep feelings just through her eyes and movements, which made her different from other actresses at the time. Loren wasn't just beautiful, she also had real depth, bringing honesty and meaning to every character she played. When she started working in Hollywood, it was the beginning of a new chapter. She became a worldwide star, acting with some of the biggest movie legends ever, including Cary Grant, Frank Sinatra, Clark Gable, and Marcello Mastroianni. In 1961, her incredible performance in Two Women, La Ciociara, directed by Vittorio De Sica, won her the Academy Award for Best Actress. This was a huge deal. She was the first actor ever to win an Oscar for acting in a foreign language film, and it proved she was one of the most respected actresses in the world. Her role as Caesira, a mom trying to protect her daughter during war, showed an emotional power that everyone could understand, no matter what language they spoke. This performance is still one of the most powerful showings of human pain and a mother's love ever put on film. Throughout the 1960s and 1970s, Loren kept being a top star in both European and American movies. She brought style, humor, and appeal to her roles in films like Marriage Italian Style, Yesterday, Today, and Tomorrow, Arabesque, and The Millionaires. Her work with Marcello Mastroianni became legendary. Together, they created an unforgettable on-screen connection that mixed romance, cleverness, and real warmth. Loren's presence was magnetic. She carried herself with grace and power, always staying true to herself even with all the glitz and glamour of fame. As time went on, Loren continued to inspire new groups of artists and fans. She never let getting older stop her from doing what she loved or following her artistic passion. Her later performances in movies like 9 in 2009 and The Life Ahead in 2020 showed that her talent and emotional depth were just as strong as ever. In The Life Ahead, directed by her son Eduardo Ponti, Loren gave a deeply touching performance as Madame Rosa, a Holocaust survivor taking care of orphan children, a role that perfectly showed her lifelong ability to portray strength even when vulnerable. On September 24, 2023, the world waited nervously as news came out that the legendary Sophia Loren had taken a bad fall at her home in Switzerland. The beloved Italian movie icon, whose grace and energy had always seemed ageless, was rushed to the hospital after breaking her hip and femur in multiple places. The accident happened at her private home near Geneva, and people close to her said it was a very scary moment for her family and fans. Within hours, Loren had emergency surgery done by a special medical team working hard to help her walk again and stop any other problems from happening. Sophia Loren's love life and marriage have always been connected to Carlo Ponti Sr., the famous Italian film producer who was hugely important not just in her personal happiness but also in building her legendary career. Their relationship was one of the most interesting and long-lasting love stories in movie history, a tale of deep love, working together on art, and going against what society expected during a time when their marriage was seen as shocking by both the church and the law. Sophia Loren first met Carlo Ponti in 1950 when she was only 15 years old and had just started entering beauty contests and trying to become an actress. Ponti was 22 years older than her and was already a successful film producer. He saw her amazing potential right away. He became her teacher and guide, helping her through the beginning of her career, getting her auditions, and changing her look from a shy, awkward teenager into a confident, glamorous actress ready to wow audiences everywhere. What started as a work relationship soon turned into something deeper, an emotional bond based on respecting each other, sharing dreams, and true love. But their path to getting married was full of obstacles. Carlo Ponti was still legally married to his first wife, Giuliana Fiastri, and Italy's strict divorce laws back then made it almost impossible for him to legally separate without being condemned by religion and society. Even with all the legal problems, Sophia and Carlo's love for each other only got stronger. In 1957, they got married by proxy in Mexico, with lawyers standing in for them during the ceremony, a move that caused a huge scandal in Italy where the marriage wasn't recognized. This marriage was later cancelled in 1962 to avoid charges of being married to two people at once. But cancelling the marriage didn't mean their relationship was over. Actually, it made them even more determined to stay together despite pressure from society and religion. Their love story eventually won over all the difficulties. In 1966, after years of legal and personal challenges, Carlo Ponti finally became a French citizen, which let him divorce his first wife and legally marry Sophia Loren again, this time in Paris. This second marriage marked the real start of their lifelong partnership, both as husband and wife and as creative partners. Carlo produced several of Sophia's most praised films, including Two Women in 1960, which won her the Academy Award for Best Actress, and Marriage Italian Style in 1964, both directed by Vittorio De Sica. Together, Sophia and Carlo built an artistic empire that represented the best of Italian elegance and sophistication to the whole world. Their marriage, which lasted more than 40 years, was full of deep loyalty, mutual respect, and a shared destiny. Unlike many Hollywood relationships that fell apart under the pressure of fame, Sophia and Carlo's bond lasted through the decades. They raised two sons, Carlo Jr., who became an orchestra conductor, and Eduardo, who became a film director, both of whom continued their parents' creative legacy. Sophia often talked about her husband as her great love, saying he believed in her when hardly anyone else did, gave her confidence, and shaped her into both a world-class actress and a woman of depth and dignity. Carlo Ponti passed away in 2007, leaving an emptiness in Sophia Loren's life that could never truly be filled. His death marked the end of an era for her, both personally and professionally. But Sophia has continued to honor his memory with grace, often speaking of him as the guiding force behind her life's greatest achievements. Even in her later years, she often thinks back on their journey together, remembering their laughter, their shared dreams, and the quiet strength of being together. Their story remains a timeless example of how love can last against all odds, a romantic partnership built not just on passion but on deep understanding, artistic teamwork, and never-ending commitment. At the age of 91, Sophia Loren is one of the last living legends of Hollywood's golden age, a lasting symbol of beauty, intelligence, and emotional depth. Throughout her long and amazing career, she has acted with many of the greatest leading men of her generation. But one name she has rarely talked about publicly is George Peppard. Only now, in her later years, does she feel ready to open up about their time together, sharing both the admiration and the challenges that came with working alongside such a complicated and interesting man. George was a mystery to me, Loren begins quietly. He was handsome and talented, but there was something behind his eyes, something troubled, something that wanted to prove itself every single moment. Loren remembered how she first met Peppard in the early 1960s when both of them were at the peak of their careers. She was already an international star known for her glowing performances in Two Women, El Cid, and Yesterday, Today, and Tomorrow. Peppard, meanwhile, had just finished his breakout success in Breakfast at Tiffany's, making himself one of Hollywood's most promising new leading men. "We met at a dinner in Los Angeles," she remembered. "He was quiet at first, almost distant, but when he spoke, his voice had great authority. I could see he was a man who had fought hard to be taken seriously." Loren described how Peppard had an old-fashioned sense of being manly, which was both attractive and at times intimidating. "He could be charming," she said, "but he also wore a certain pride, an armor, you could say, that made it hard to really know him deeply." Their work relationship, according to Loren, had respect, but also tension. "George was very serious about his acting," she explained. "He wanted everything to be perfect, every line, every movement. That kind of intensity can be beautiful, but it can also be tiring. He would sometimes get frustrated when things didn't go his way, and I would just look at him and smile. I told him, "George, life is not a battlefield." He laughed, but I don't think he ever fully believed it. Loren's laughter at the memory had a sad tone, as if she were remembering a man who never quite found peace with himself. He wanted recognition, but he also pushed people away. That was his contradiction. The Italian actress spoke honestly about Peppard's reputation in Hollywood, his perfectionism, his stubbornness, and his sometimes difficult personality. He had a fire inside him, she said, and that fire burned bright, but it also burned him. She remembered how Peppard's fights with studios and co-stars eventually cost him many opportunities that could have made his career even greater. He didn't always play the Hollywood game, Loren admitted. He wanted to be respected as an artist, not just a handsome man. I admired that. But in this business, you sometimes have to bend a little, and George never wanted to bend. Still, Loren's tone was warm rather than critical. There was a kindness in him that people didn't always see, she said. Between takes, he could be very gentle. He loved to talk about books, about politics, about the human condition. He was not shallow. He had a mind that was always searching, always questioning. Loren paused, her voice getting softer. Sometimes I think he was too intelligent for the world he found himself in. Hollywood is a place that rewards charm more than deep thinking. George had both, but he was never comfortable with the fake parts of it all. Thinking about Peppard's later years, Loren clearly got emotional. "It made me sad to see how the industry turned its back on him," she confessed. "He deserved better. There was a time when he could have been one of the greats, like Brando, like Newman. But fate had other ideas." Loren added that Peppard's struggles with alcohol and personal demons seemed to come from the same restless energy that once made him so magnetic on screen. "He wanted truth in everything," she said. "But truth can be painful, and he carried that pain inside him." When asked what she would say to George Peppard today if he were still alive, Loren smiled sadly. "I would tell him that he was wonderful," she said, "that he didn't have to fight so hard, that his talent was enough." After a long pause, she added quietly, "He was a good man, even when he didn't believe it himself." Sophia Loren's thoughts about George Peppard offer a rare look into the human side of two icons shaped by the same demanding world. Her words, filled with wisdom and compassion, show not only her respect for Peppard as an artist, but also her understanding of the fragility behind his strength. "We were from different worlds," she concluded. "But I always understood him. Beneath the pride, beneath the struggle, there was a man who simply wanted to be loved."